Next stop, Chicago Junction.
And welcome to Chicago Junction, the new edition starting in 2019. The radio program is all about the amazing world of railroading and the many facets of the industry, of both model and real. I am your announcer, Brian Valou, and here's our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, and Chief Electrical Engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Brian, and Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first broadcast for the year 2019. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, January the 9th, the year 2019. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Well, thank you, John. And our chief dispatcher who keeps us, Mr. Jack Red Ryan, is out with medical issues, but he's getting proper treatment and he's coming along great. So in the meantime, they flipped a coin. Everybody left the room, and I'm the only one left to be the ringmaster today. So, my name is Brian Valou, your announcer and ringmaster, and I am a rail fan. I belong to several museums dealing with the history, several organizations, both modeling and historical and contests like Chicago Chapter NRHS, of which I'm still a director. Somehow I keep getting re-elected.
You need to learn to step back quicker.
That's true. Well, I have to around you guys. And to my left, we have Dave DeRuska.
Yes, I am. Retired locomotive engineer. Last gig was Metra. I am a member and a officer of the Black Hawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society, as well as the program wrangler. I'm also the guy who's trying to get Chicago Railroad History Month going. Well, we did last year. We got the city to approve it, give us a proclamation, and now we're moving forward to try to do it many more years up to 2023, when the 175th anniversary of the first train to depart Chicago will take place.
Just give Ed Burke a donation.
Yeah, right. No, I think that would be money lost. That'd be for his defense fund. I'm also the guy who's in charge of the Chicago Junction Facebook page, and I am currently serving a 2-day sentence in Facebook prison. So I'm not administering anything.
You got a timeout.
Yeah, I did. Long story.
So we have a visitor also.
My name is John Peixoto. Nowadays I just say I'm just a guy from the west side of Chicago, but I've been in around the hobby business, and I've been a past, director for Chicago Chapter NRHS, ran a bunch of excursions, done a bunch of stuff in the Chicago area. And if I don't know about something in the Chicago area considering trains, I probably know somebody who can answer a question.
Huh.
Good evening. My name's Kevin Berry. I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant and a lifelong Lionel collector and operator. I'm also a director with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club. And I work with the Scouts, including the Railroading Merit Badge.
Hi, I'm Doug Kenyuk, a adjunct professor at Wright College, a longtime rail fan, N-scaler, and officer in the Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago.
Hi, I'm Ron Stock, retired library director from Eisenhower Public Library, a railroad buff, HO modeler, and just all in all, lover of trains.
And there you have the bullpen right now. Well,
We're full crew tonight. Almost.
Yeah,
Almost.
almost.
Schmolen's not here.
yeah, Ron's
Jack's
not
not
here.
here.
That's okay. We get cranky with the crowded table. Jeez. But I mean, 2018 was good, but 2019 is going to have several great things happening. Like last year, mostly it was East Coast, but they were celebrating the 250th anniversary of anthracite mining and such like that, which was very big back then, and gave birth to a lot of railroads that consolidated and make some, make the Lehigh Valley, the Jersey Central, Reading, and that basically exploded a lot of things in industry moving in.
The CNO made $1 or $2 hauling coal.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about the anthracite roads.
I'm sorry. Just because we didn't get to haul the clean stuff.
Oh, no. Bituminous is good, too. Anyway.
Speaking of anthracite, there was a really good article in the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society magazine about the Mother Hubbard engines that were designed to burn anthracite, bigger fireboxes and...
Yeah, because the fires with the anthracite were actually thinner than the bituminous fires. That's why they needed the wider fireboxes. So...
they were just one of the parts of the discussion was the fact that they were considered unsafe engines, and there were a number of attempts to try to get rid of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, or what they could do to try to make it safer on the back deck for the firemen.
Right.
And because a lot of times some of the fireboxes were so wide, they actually had 2 firebox doors. And they had 2 men out there. So, but, we've got a lot to look forward to in 2019.
Yep.
And, to get this show going, why don't Dave start off with some real railroad news?
Real railroad news. New railroad infrastructure improvements planned for the South Loop. The Canadian National Railway will complete preliminary utility work, and then in early 2019 will start reconstructing overpasses at Michigan and Wabash Avenues, as well as State, Dearborn, and Clark Streets. Railroad spokesperson said the bridges in the South Loop that serve freight and passenger trains on the St. Charles Airline are near the end of their service life. I would posit that they are long past the end of their service life. The railroad regularly inspects them to ensure that they meet rigorous federal safety standards, which the federal government is probably trying to do away with as we speak. CN will reduce the number of tracks in part of this area from 4 to 1 and realign the track. This realignment will allow for a straighter track configuration, improving fluidity and safety. The new bridge configurations will allow for street curb straightening and the potential for on-street parking. If you like to have stuff dripped on your car, park it under a bridge. Workers will rebuild the bridges without current center pillars and potentially easing pedestrian crossings. So that's what's going on in the St. Charles Airline.
4 tracks to 1.
I only remember 2 tracks there.
Yeah.
That's this is from I don't know. I'm surprised. This is Bill Maloney from Blackhawk NRHS. This is my chapter newsletter.
Gonna have to ask Bill. Last time I was on the airline was last year, and I only saw 2 tracks crossing the Rock Island.
Yeah. Even coming up out of the off the ice, now the CN, but the old ICE. Amtrak has ordered 75 new locomotives. Amtrak has ordered 75 new Charger locomotives from Siemens Mobility, with options to purchase more. The locomotives will be used primarily for Amtrak's long-distance train service. Oh, I guess they plan on having long-distance train service. The new locomotives will be used to replace some of Amtrak's General Electric P40 and P42 locomotives, some of which have been in service for more than 25 years. Oh, my God.
It means Metro's going to buy a few more.
Yeah, right.
They just did.
Delivery of the new locomotives will begin in the summer of 2021, with passenger service beginning in fall of 2021. They will be built in Sacramento, California.
Well, that means they've got enough time then to try to correct all the problems they're having now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's. I have a friend who works for Amtrak out in Milwaukee, and he sent me an email photo. Somebody had taken the cover from the Siemens locomotive manual and wrote down "wanted" for impersonating a locomotive. And yes, they are problematic, very problematic.
Well, if they're making them in California, they'll probably run on used French fry oil.
No, that's okay.
Oh, that's okay.
We're good with that.
But they have to run.
Yeah, right.
I can't wait till they hit a big snowstorm in the Midwest with a Charger.
Yeah.
We're all waiting for that.
Yeah, and this just a little aside in the Metro realm, they just painted one of their locomotives in Milwaukee Road colors.
Came out of KYD last week.
Yep.
Looks real good.
Oh, good. Well, now I wish I could remember the name of that governor who was part of the Milwaukee Road bankruptcy. Ogilvy, right. I said my comment on when I posted it was at least they didn't put Ogilvy's name on the side of the locomotive like they did for Orsino.
On the hot dog?
On the hot dog, yes. That's the Orsino hot dog, and yes, he was.
So you're saying that with these new Amtrak Chargers, we're going to have a real-world snow piercer?
No, because...
That's his favorite?
Yes,
That's Brian's favorite movie.
Yes.
Brian was actually speechless for a couple of seconds.
I cannot say what I'm thinking on broadcasting airways.
No. Well, it only goes on YouTube.
I wish I had a camera.
But no, we know it's not. It won't be piercing. Okay. It will be stopping.
Stalling.
Once the snow goes inside of the locomotive and into the electrical cabinet through that nice screen. Yeah. How much do they weigh? 200,000-pound track weight.
Amtrak has revealed the next steps in Chicago's Union Station development. The next phase of work will include addition of a new entrance on the Clinton Street side, which will open up the west side for Amtrak's own station head house for development as a food court and retail space. Construction is likely to begin in the fourth quarter of 2019 and take 3 years. The project also includes renovation of the 4th through 8th floors of the head house and a 9th-story addition for 2 hotels. 2 hotels? 2?
They're planning on building a new one across the street. Take that building down and put a new one up.
Okay.
And they're still planning on putting a penthouse around the roof.
Yeah, but at least they're not going to put that god-awful glass box that they were going to stick on top of it.
No, just a glass penthouse.
Yeah, well, it's not easily visible from street level.
You know they have a way.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. What do we got here? Yeah. Ron's showing me something in Trains Magazine. Basically the same thing.
The redevelopment pictures.
Yeah, the redevelopment picture, which was eventually scotched. You know, they decided, after much ado over that by many people, including architectural critics that said it looked like a piece of glass crap on top of a classic building, they cut back on that plan. So I guess they moved like you said, they moved the development across the street. The city council has given a go-ahead for a $900 million redevelopment plan that includes an office tower on Amtrak property next to Union Station. As part of the redevelopment, the station's Boar Heads House will be renovated and topped with a new addition.
Now I know why Greektown's disappearing.
Yeah, well.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's because the big news last week was Greektown being bought up.
Of course, it's close to the loop.
I believe the Parthenon is closing. And I don't know how long the remaining restaurants there will be there.
The Parthenon closed
Was it
2 months ago.
Yeah.
2 months ago?
Yeah. Something about failing 3 health inspections in a row.
Whoopa!
You get cockroaches with your saganaki.
Hey, come on! You burn them up when you set the cheese on fire.
That's right.
Crispy.
They stop crawling.
Just added protein.
All right, I'll shut up for a while and let somebody else take over here.
Okay, Doug.
Yeah, I got a few items. Railtex in Texas is starting their Trinity Metro service between the Fort Worth Dallas Airport and I just lost the place on this, and Fort Worth. So they're actually running commuter service now between the airport and downtown Dallas.
No, they're not. They came out with a statement today. Because of the government shutdown, they haven't started running yet.
Oh, it says here it's supposed to start tomorrow.
They can't get the inspections because there's
Okay.
no inspectors.
Okay. So anyway, it's going to start soon.
Now that's good.
It could be months. It could be years.
It could be years, yeah. It could be next week. Tuesday.
I'm quoting our president.
Yes. The O'Hare People Mover is closed. They extended it into the area of the metro station across Manheim Road, but part of that deal was that they're going to renovate the whole system. So now, starting this weekend, it's going to be closed until fall while they renovate the track and bring in new equipment. They want bigger cars to carry more people because lately it's been getting a little crowded on there during prime time. So it's they said they were carrying 30,000 passengers a day on it. So it's
been closed for a while.
It's been 6 weeks. It's
Yep.
been closed.
going to cost $841 million to finish the job. Yeah.
At this time, it'll blossom.
Oh yeah.
It'll grow.
So
It depends on which alderman gets involved.
said it's 25 years old, this system, so they figured it's time to renovate. Rio Tinto, our favorite company down in Australia, is 100% automated.
Yay!
They do have grade crossings, and they got cameras mounted everywhere. They are considered a heavy hauler because they haul ore back and forth. It's going to be interesting because they call the service auto haul, and they having to divert drivers to the road for operational reasons. They decided that humans are no longer qualified to run their trains. So they're going to be the first automated long-distance railroad.
How many miles?
It said here it's 1,700 kilometers.
I don't have my calculator with me.
Okay, 100 kilometers is 62 miles. 620, a little over 1,000 miles, 1,100 miles, something like that.
So yeah, that's the whole system.
So they're automated all the way to the docks. I mean,
Yep. Right to the docks.
right to the docks, and they have operators sitting in control rooms, right?
Yes, looking at cameras and at the crossings and
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So a couple of days later, a story pops up. East Japan Railway. They're going to take all their trolleys and make them automated. Take the drivers, they call it the drivers, take the motormen out of it. They said that it's a 34.5 kilometer circular route, which is about, what do you think, 30 miles? No, maybe 20.
How many
20.
miles?
It's
20,
34
21.
kilometers.
It's about 15 miles.
Yeah. So it's a short line, but they're going to automate. They're testing it now, and they're going to allow their streetcar service to be automated.
Well, they have lines like that in England,
So it's
and they had lines like that here in the States.
and they're doing it because they said there's staff shortages because of the aging population. The newer kids don't want to work on the trains. Yada yada yada.
They want to draw anime cartoons.
Yes. Now, St. Louis Dispatch had a great story talking about the high-speed line between Chicago and St. Louis, and when will it be high speed? And
When
the story,
monkeys might fly out my...
it said that maybe by the end of this year, they might be running trains at 90 miles an hour. And IDOT has said that they will not give a prediction any longer when they'll be running them at 110. And so they're questioning that the 1.95 billion so far is okay. You spent that much money. How come they're not running faster? And then they're talking about how Union Pacific is saying, well, we're working real hard to integrate the freight trains and the Amtrak trains. So I can't see the Union Pacific trains running at 110, but that's neither here nor there. So right now they're projecting Amtrak that will be allowed by the end of the year to run at 90. Right now the current speed's 79 through there. And that's on the segment only between St. Louis and Alton. They're not even talking about the rest of the system. So it's a interesting question when they're going to finally ever finish it. And that's what I got.
Okay, I got a email from Amtrak Vacations, and this week they're shilling for the Grand National Parks with Yellowstone, Yosemite, and the Grand Canyon.
Oh, that's all the closed parks, right?
The Grand Canyon Getaway, the San Francisco Ultimate Getaway, and the Seattle Getaway. And that's promotions at AmtrakVacations.com.
Is that leaving Seattle or going to Seattle?
I believe it doesn't say. It doesn't say.
Nobody leaves Seattle.
The Grand National Parks is 13 days starting at $2,849, and if you call, you can save $200 per couple.
Oh, wow.
Ooh. Big money.
Christmas was interesting if you were a Lionel collector. Lionel came out with two versions of the same car. The Polar Express Letters to Santa mail car. The A version has the black roof that matches the original Polar Express set. The B version, and they have different stock numbers, which is something my children don't understand, is the snow-covered roof, and it has a set of footprints that goes from one end of the car to the other end of the car. And they also came out with a Polar Express, girder bridge. So that goes with the Polar Express covered bridge from last year. So, Polar Express is almost becoming its own line, because they came out with the Hero Boys House last year. I would love to see Lionel come up with the other house in the movie, the kid from 11423 Edbrook, which is an actual house with slight exterior modifications, but I'd love to see that come out. And that house was the house that John Zemeckis or Robert Zemeckis grew up in. For Roseland Escapees, it was a couple of doors north of the old St. Willibrad's High School. And I was told on the 9th of December that someone has acquired the architectural plans for the Pullman Clock Tower and intends to release it as a model. And if it's done in the right scale, it will make a tremendous centerpiece for any Polar Express Christmas layout, because the Pullman Clock Tower is the North Pole Clock Tower.
Oh.
So, good things may be coming.
Fascinating.
Remarkable.
One can only hope.
Okay.
You're on, Ron.
I got 3 sets of cards which were put out by Train Magazine, and the first set is entitled Great Railroad Flashcards. and there's 36 cards per box in each of the sets. And what they do is they have a colored photograph on the, and the back has information about each of the.
We're waiting, patiently waiting for Ron to open the boxes.
Box, which I can't do, by the way.
You need
Let's see,
fingernails,
Ron.
Ron. Fingernails.
I need longer fingernails. I was going to trim them today, and good thing I didn't.
Hey, we got one open.
The second box, which I did finally open, is famous trains, flashcards, and the very first one is a Hiawatha, and it talks about where the route was for the Hiawatha, what the colors were for the given train, how many miles, which in this case was 421 miles, and what type of equipment they ran on that given train, and that it was the Milwaukee Road Railroad, and what type of engines powered it, which were actually two steam engines, a 442 and a 464, and then EMD E's and E and F units, and then what the service. It was launched in 1935 and discontinued in 1971, and it's still called the Hiawatha under Amtrak. So, and each of the cards has a picture of a given train. The second one, which I will only do two, is the city of New Orleans, which is Illinois Central, and also known for the Woody Arlo Guthrie song and Steve Goodman's song, City of New Orleans. And that one ran 921 miles. It was streamlined equipment, and it was EMD E units, and the service history was 1947 to when Amtrak came in 71, and still continues as Amtrak. I have to admit, I've ridden that several times. It's a terrific ride. If you're a railroad buff, you'll enjoy it. If you're not sure whether you'll become a railroad buff, it's the one trip that I recommend as a short trip. That it's basically a day. It leaves the Union Station at 8 o'clock at night, and usually you're in New Orleans by 3 in the afternoon. And it's also one of the routes that Amtrak, it's pretty much on time all the time. The final set of cards is Powerful Locomotives, and let's see. I'm trying to pick out a couple of more steam engines. There's the 2662, which is a mallet engine and was built by the C&O Railroad, Chesapeake and Ohio. And there were 918 that were produced, and it was known for hauling coal and logs. And and there's one on the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, which is restored, and you can take a trip on it. And
Those are called Kiwanis?
pardon me?
They had a nickname for them.
Yeah, there was a
see.
name. Well, see, what's unique about it also is it was the last domestic steam locomotive that Baldwin built.
Ah.
And that's one of the reasons why it got saved, number 1309. And it still has some work that needs to be done on it, but hopefully they'll have it running by the middle of summer. So you stepped on my preservation. That's good.
Way to go.
Yeah, but the good thing is I know with the fellow panelists that I have, they'll always add a fountain of information, if not a waterfall of information to it, which is excellent. I was trying to see if they had, I think they had the big boy in here, but yep, no, nope, that's a Challenger. Yeah. And then, of course, they have Flash Card for the Big Boy, which is was built between 41 and 44. It's the Union Pacific. It was built by Alcoa. There were 25 that were built. It was one of the heaviest engines that was made, and there's 8 that are preserved, and 4014 is being currently restored by the Union Pacific and hopes to run this year, I believe. So probably the spring of this year, if I recall.
You're taking Brian's steam away from him.
That's okay. But we got to remember, it wasn't made out of aluminum.
Yeah, it was Alco, not Alcoa.
Oh, okay.
It'd be a much lighter unit if Alcoa made it.
Yeah.
So anyway, each of these are pretty cool. It's a cool set. Brian, a few months back, brought in a set that was produced like Trivia Pursuit. I think they're better. A lot better. Another thing that I have, which I got as I sort of wear different railroad shirts, and they're a pretty good supplier because they do almost all the major former railroads. It's called Daylight Sales. They are out in California. They're near the McClendon Air Force Base, California. And I'm assuming that's probably towards Pendleton and southern part of California. Anyway, they have a whole mess of boat shirts, jackets, and
T-shirts?
No, this is north.
oh, they're north?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Well,
No,
50,
it's
50
near.
chance.
It's near Sacramento.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit further north than Pendleton.
All right. Yeah, a lot further north.
No, the one that was north of them was Torres.
Okay.
It was a Marine base, and now they have moved out of there, and they're down at Miramar, and they moved the Navy to Mexico, New Mexico. At this time we need to do station night. Oh, we don't need to do station identification.
No?
No, because
We're done with that?
Yes.
Because we're not on a station anymore.
Right. We're just on the platform.
Yeah, we're on the net.
We're
on the-
Zennials now. We don't know
Yeah.
anything except digital.
Yeah, we're the net.
Yes, we're on.
They haven't made a net big enough for you.
Look
yet,
us
David.
up, look us up on YouTube, but you won't see any photos of us.
All right, before I guess. Well, you asked. I remember you were asking John to come here, Doug,
Yeah.
with our other friend who chickened out.
Yeah.
And now he's here.
Who? Our good buddy.
I don't know.
It's a mystery.
Anyway,
You can't remember his name. Doug is giving me a blank look.
It's his neighbor,
oh, Ronnie.
Ron
Messner.
Messner. Now, the Ron Messner story.
Ron
The
Messner.
Ron Messner story.
Well,
I worked at Chicago Public Access with his wife,
yes, you did.
and Ron was the janitor there. I liked Ron. Ron is a nice guy.
Oh yeah, he is. You know, I met him through the Chicago Area Garden Railway Society.
Right.
He's a garden railroad enthusiast,
Mm-hmm.
and he happens to be Doug's neighbor.
That's right.
Which I found out when I went and did a presentation for the Garden Railroad Group.
And then I found out you guys knew each other.
Yeah, right.
And then found out John knows everybody too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary.
Knowing us is scary. Yes,
Well,
definitely.
see, we saw them at the World's Greatest Hobby show.
This
up in
past
Schaumburg
weekend.
This past weekend. And I was working at the Pico booth. Not just extolling their products, I was kind of letting the kids play with the trains. The idea was we're going to demonstrate the trains. If the kids kick them off, that's great. They had giant Lego blocks out there. They were building things, kicking trains off track, to show them how sturdy the product is.
And several of the fathers and mothers were on their knees playing with the trains, too.
Yes, they were. And then we had a lot of repeats, especially with the last 45 minutes. And the parents were kind of going, on the side. And all the kids were playing with. So we decided we're going to have rates next time. We'll have good rates for babysitting.
It was a very nice show.
It was.
It was.
Yes.
It was a good show.
I didn't go.
Well, what? No, it was the world's greatest hobby, and it's promoting model railroading and all the facets of it. And they had a lot of good manufacturers there. They had even they have a gentleman by the name of Michael Brogy, who was basically a Walt Disney
Oh, yes.
historian. He wrote a wonderful book on Disney's railroad. His father was one of the original Imagineers working for Walt. He made the cameras, the big 7-plane cameras and such for animation, and he had a lot of patents. And Michael was a teenager when they opened Disneyland, so Walt used him to help test out all the rides, the Autobahn and such, and he was always riding the trains with them. And he tells a real nice story. It goes for about 45 minutes, almost an hour, sitting there, and he answers questions. Very, very nice gentleman. But he and his wife and really nice people. And then, of course, they sell a lot of Disney memorabilia
There you
too.
go.
There were some really interesting layouts there in all different scales. The European Railroad Club was there, although the gentleman who has the Eurorail conductor's uniform, I didn't see him this time. And there was someone there, and it was an HO club, and they were expressing their view of G-gauge. They took a G-gauge boxcar and cut holes in both ends and made a covered bridge out of it, which I thought was really cute. Yeah, here's your boxcar G-gauge. Whoop. But there was I think it might have been the Midwest High Railers. There's one guy in the club that he's a police officer out in DuPage County, and his thing is putting lights into any vehicle, and he has a diorama on his section, and it's a city street with a house on fire, and every police and fire vehicle is fully illuminated, headlights, taillights, bars. He's got a house on fire with a smoke unit in it, with smoke coming out through the hole in the roof where the fire is, punched through, or where the firemen have probably the firemen opened up because the lines were just too cleanly cut for it to have been done by a fire. But I mean, you could drop the house lights, and the lights that he had in the emergency equipment would probably light up 10 feet.
Yeah.
I was watching it, and I was literally shoved out of the way by a little 3-foot-tall young person. I mean, this kid should have a contract for the Bears, because when he grows up, he's going to be lethal. I'm 225 pounds, and he knocked me back on my heels, and it was either step back or fall over.
Yeah, but there were a lot of vendors there.
Yep.
Some doing just cabinets. They were made for modelers for displays. We had a lot of manufacturers there. Lionel, MTH, Bachman,
Walthers
was there, and a lot of they make the smaller stuff that the big guys don't. And Broadway Limited was there.
Yeah. Or two or three
TM Books and Videos was there. with
two or
all-
three companies that make signals and switches.
Z Stuff for Trains was there. They make
Yep.
a wide variety of signals, everything from Z to G. I think there's,
That's the way they go.
yeah.
There was one guy there that I thought was there, really unique stuff for the real fanatic train fan. All the bar tools you need for your home bar, the handles were made out of railroad spikes.
Okay, well, that one I didn't see.
I didn't see that one either.
Yeah, corkscrews and rind peelers and
Yes, very interesting handles.
Is it my imagination? Is there some kind of TV show going on in the background?
No, I do have another radio station on here.
Ah, well, it's bleeding in.
It is, well,
Oh boy.
yeah, there were cabinets for wine glasses and
Oh yeah, well, we had several photographers there, and I got to talking with that one setup that was right up front, and it turns out a lot of the pictures were made from the guy's backyard.
Well.
His backyard goes right onto the N&W main line in Virginia.
Is the interchange
Yeah.
with them?
I don't know, but while he's having good parties, he has a lot of people back there trying to take pictures.
there was
Yeah.
also somebody there selling the candy coated walnuts and cashews and stuff.
Nuts and stuff.
Yes.
And also, just for a lot of the kids, there was Thomas to ride.
Yep.
There was
7.5-inch gauge circle.
There was also a track car sitting there on static display for the kids to get their photos taken in.
Speeder.
Speeder? Okay.
And, of course, the Lionel Club was promoting drag racing with the locomotives.
Yeah. One of our members brought in excess of 20 of his personal collection engines, and we found out that it's not a good thing necessarily to drag race K-line engines because they're single motor, and when you throw 16 volts at them, you can literally lift the front wheels off the track. He had 3 of his engines got damaged, same part on all 3 engines. But there were 2 die-cast steam engines that were real strong runners, and a Elco passenger engine that we had 2 motors in it, so it was a strong run. There were a lot of really good races. I brought an old Lionel 230 Chesapeake and Ohio engine, probably from the early 60s, and it was a worm drive engine. And it wasn't, it doesn't have a lot of pulling power. It wasn't the fastest engine, but later in the day, as the other fast engines got beat up and got a little carboned up, it could make a professional appearance.
I always like racing the Marx engines.
I have one Marx engine, and it's an S2, and it's a strong puller, and I just don't have. It was given to me, and I don't want to do anything to damage it. And
Aw.
it's in Illinois Central markings. It's just it's just a favorite engine.
What would you like to contribute, sir?
Well, I was thinking about this coming weekend. There's the DuPage County swap meet coming up. Are you going to be there?
So far, yes. Howsoever, it could change.
Well, for years I've helped friends of ours do retail sales, and I go out there and I help out, and I've had people go, John, when you come to the show, you know, you're a train enthusiast. You like HO trains. You sold them for years. What one thing do you look for when you come to the Wheaton swap meet? And I had to be very honest, and I do this almost every month. There's one item I always buy. If you walk into the main building in the middle, there's the lady that sells the fudge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she probably misses me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to work right across
Right
from
across with the...
with the XL, with Phoenix Limited.
right.
You know, selling XL lubricants and stuff. I was covering the tables for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd bring in some Lionel to sell. And everything that I sold usually went to the lady across the aisle.
Who makes some of the best fudge I've ever had.
Oh, her cherry cordial.
Oh, I'm hung up on their chocolate peanut butter.
Ooh.
Any
Now you
other
know why
news
I
in the
don't.
hobby?
Now you know why I don't go there that much, because
Now, is this the same as the Great Midwest Train Show? Or is this something?
yeah, that is the
exactly
Great
what
Midwest
it is.
Train Show
And
at DuPage
Right, now,
Fairgrounds.
we will not broadcast, or we will not...
We will not broadcast, but we can say to them that it does happen every second Sunday of the
Right.
month.
Next one is February the 10th.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Go out for a good day of fun.
And for those of you who are in the Indiana area, on January the 27th, which is a Sunday, the Winter Swap Meet will be sponsored by the Blackhawk Railway Historical Society. Will take place in Griffith, Indiana.
Oh,
at,
that's a nice show.
American Legion Post 66.
Mm.
And it's a fun thing, and there will be a presentation by artist Mitch Markovitz. After the swap meet is over with, he will also be selling some of his art there. And let's see, a couple more things. February 17th, the Peoria Train Fair at Illinois Central College in East Peoria, Illinois. And February 24th, the Duneland Model Railroad Club swap meet will be held in Michigan City, Indiana. And if I ever get back on Facebook, I'll post this stuff.
Oh,
If I ever get out of prison.
well, at the beginning of the show, I talked about some good things happening this year. We've talked a little bit about them, but there's a couple of anniversaries coming up. I guess the big one has to do with the big boy because of the 150th anniversary of the driving of the Golden Spike. And that is May 10th. And they're going to be celebrating it in Ogden. They are going to have a special trip going out with buses taking them out to the original site of where they did the Golden Spike, which really wasn't promontory. Apparently, they were kept talking, and they keep moving it. But
Did you happen to see the Rose Bowl parade?
believe it or not, I did view that on TV.
Yeah, for those of you who are not familiar with what happened at the Rose Bowl parade, they had a special float that celebrated the Chinese laborers, sponsored by the Union Pacific.
And they were having the two locomotives meeting, and smoke started coming out where smoke wasn't supposed to come out.
And it turns out that it actually was a fire, and there was a turn of the 19th century fire brigade unit in the parade. The horse-drawn fire vehicle, and the firemen in the canvas pants and the red shirts with the suspenders. And they were able to put the fire out.
They responded.
They were actual fires too, doing for their organization.
So
They were one of
and
the
that
city
it
firefighters.
almost brought the parade to an end. They had to get a large wrecker in there and push it off to the side so the units behind it could snake around it And the Lincoln Way High School combined band, their first appearance at the Rose Bowl parade, had to snake around the two defunct steam engines.
And my understanding is they did a fabulous job and didn't miss a step.
They did a really good job. They didn't get flustered. And if they hadn't gone to a long shot from either a helicopter or one of the Goodyear airships, you wouldn't have known it. But basically, they had to take a marching band through a space that was about 30 foot wide. And there's like 10 kids in each rank. There's a 200 plus person marching band, and they got to squeeze through this 30 foot space and not go 6 ways from Sunday.
Anyway,
back to you, Uncle Brian.
Yes. Well, the thing is, there will be the meeting of engines that they're going to do in Ogden, but it will be the Big Boy and the 844 touching couplers. And also on display, believe it or not, the original Gold Spike does exist. Ooh. Yes. It is now in Omaha. But there were 3 other spikes to go with it. The Silver Spike. And a Silver Spike was presented by the newly formed state of Nevada, considering that was the big export at the time from them.
Yeah, the Silver State.
The Silver Spike weighing 25 troy ounces, was rushed to the site and later inscribed to Leland Stanford, President of the Central Pacific, to the iron of the East and the gold of the West. Nevada adds her link with silver to span the continent and wed the oceans. And it's also normally displayed at Stanford Cantor Center of Visual Arts. Now they had a second one that was blended. It was blended of iron, gold, and silver. And was provided by the Territory of Arizona. And was inscribed, ribbed with iron, clad in silver, crowned with gold. Arizona presents her offering to the enterprise that has banded a continent dedicated to the pathway of commerce, presented by Governor Safford. The spike was given to Union Pacific executive Sidney Dillon and was eventually acquired by the Museum of the City of New York from the Dillon's granddaughter. It's currently on loan to the Union Pacific in Council Bluffs. Oh, they moved it. Okay. From Omaha. Moved it all to Council Bluffs. The second lower quality golden spike, they don't know where it is. It's
not in a tie somewhere?
Well, they claim it was lost in the earthquake of 1906.
Sure.
It's probably in a pawn shop somewhere.
No, it was presented by Frederick Merritt, proprietor of the San Francisco newspaper. It was engraved with this spike. The San Francisco Newsletter offers its homage to the great work join the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It never was as prominent as the Hughes spike, which was the golden spike, and it faded to obscurity and allegedly was handed to Grenville Dodge, Union Pacific's chief engineer, and what Dodge did with it, if he was actually received it, is unknown. Other accounts place the spike with Durant or Union Pacific board member John Duff. Yet another tale states it returned to the newsletter and made its way back to San Francisco, where it was lost during the 1906 earthquake. Now, a silver-plated maul or hammer welded the ceremony. The mall was joined the Hughes spike and the silver spike at the Stanford University. A 7.5-foot tie was made of polished California laurel, was donated by West Evans, tie contractor for the Central Pacific, to receive the ceremonial spikes pre-drilled with 4 holes, so this way they didn't have to bang real hard.
Mm-hmm.
Tink, tink, tink. And
Also,
placed on the ground under the last rail, silver plate engraved, last tie laid on completion of the Pacific Railroad, May 1869. It was taken back to Sacramento and kept in the railroad shop until 1890, when it was moved to Southern Pacific's San Francisco main office. It burned in the 1906 earthquake and fire.
And if it didn't burn, it became landfill.
But, so 3 of the spikes are now together again, along with the mall. That put it in. Tink, tink, tink.
I'm wondering if they're going to have the appropriate number of drunks at the ceremony, like they did for the first one.
Everybody.
I
We could
volunteer.
volunteer.
I volunteer. I can be an
Yeah.
actor. Give me a costume. Give me something to drink.
I understand the original ceremony was delayed by several hours because one of the preeminent persons was so inebriated it took that long to sober him up.
Anyway, now there is another in November, to be exact, railway going to be celebrating a 100th anniversary, known as the Impossible Railway, the San Diego and Arizona Railway.
Never heard of it.
Well, see, this was Spriggs, John D. Spreckles, dubbed the Impossible Railroad. What it is, he made a railroad from San Diego, but Santa Fe came down first, down the coast. So what he had to do, he had to go south and then go east. And he ended up going down through Mexico, a place called Tijuana,
Mm-hmm.
and came out of a place called Campo after he went through Tecate. And then they came back into the States and made their way through the canyon there at Hucumba and Carrizo Gorge and had the famous Goat Trestle in there. Had a lot of tunnels, and then some of the mountains shifted actually, and they had to drill a new tunnel. And made their way to El Centro, just south of Imperial.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they hooked up with the SP line there that went up along the Salton Sea. And SP was behind part of the construction. And they ended up selling Spreckles their first locomotives. And one locomotive from that era has been saved, a consolidation number 102, plus Spreckles' car, which has been undergoing heavy restoration with the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum. They set up an active museum out at Campo, and they run trains. They used to run, one of the tunnels collapsed, but they used to run to Tecate out of Campo, and it had a beautiful train. But with everything's going on now, we're going to have to see what happens, because the railroad, the Tijuana and Tecate Railroad, as it's called, between borders, is running good freight service and makes exchanges at Tijuana, and they're waiting to make exchanges and trains to go through from up there and all the way, but because the tracks were owned by the tracks stayed intact because the ones who started the streetcar, Metropolitan Transit.
San Diego Trolley.
Yeah. It would be a MTSB.
Okay.
Big red cars.
Right.
They own the tracks.
So they
And,
own it down to.
Yeah, they owned actually all of it, but they lease it
Okay.
out to the freight carriers. It started out with San Diego and Arizona Eastern. That was the SP's run. And they use 70 tonners with their switching. And in fact, we saved one of the 70 tonners, and it's at the museum now in Campo.
Okay.
And on that track out there, there's 5 miles of track that have been worked by the museum, and they lease trackage rights and run their trains
Where's the consolidation?
at Campo. They have another. They have a 282 Minaret from Coos Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and got an 060, I believe, from E.J. Levino.
Okay.
They have 2 EMD World War II MRS 1s, 1,600 horsepower. We have Alco MRS 1s
Mm-hmm.
that were made in the 50s. We got an SP Jeep, the SP 70 tonner, nice little 45 tonner,
Mm-hmm.
and a few others. They had a couple of coaches from Darnell and Russellville, DNR. In the South, they were using a lot of movies,
Okay.
and they were able to get them. Well, they restored one of them completely, and it turns out to be a, what was it back then? I'm trying to think of the proper name. It was a segregation car.
Oh, Jim Crow car.
Jim Crow. That's proper. Sorry. But yeah, and totally beautifully restored. They really did a beautiful job out there. And it'll be in November will be the 100th anniversary. And I know the people at PSRMA are planning a lot of activities because I'm a life member of that museum.
So does this mean you will go out and fire a steam locomotive?
No, that engine, trust me, needs a lot of work. Slightly more work, but it'll probably cost as much as rebuilding the big boy.
Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but when he was a young man, Mr. Bryan used to fire. What was Ross running at that time?
2101.
Yeah.
I learned from them guys. Yeah, but he was my teacher on diesel.
You were talking about trains that used to go across the border and all that. I see an unusual herald on Kansas City Southern car carriers from time to time. You'll see this, this big car carrier car, and it'll have 2 sets of logos on it. One says Kansas City Southern. The other says Kansas City Southern de Mexico.
Yeah, they're Mexican.
What's the story? Did
They go south.
They have a subsidiary in Mexico
okay?
where they exchange equipment at the border.
And there's a bit of a controversy about that because what they want to do is have Mexican engineers run over the border into the United States. And the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen is totally against that. And it's the same as trucks. Mexican truckers are allowed to come so far into the United States, but the rules and regulations down there are a bit dodgier than they are up here.
Yeah, the regulations are slightly looser than ours.
Right.
More negotiable?
More ignorable.
Yeah. But yeah, if you go to the PSRMA website, you'll be able to find out a lot more information.
Cool.
Well,
Yeah, when I see the the Ferrocarril de Mexico. I know that's a Mexican railroad. I just didn't realize that Kansas City Southern had a south of the border division.
Oh yeah.
Who has? Somebody owns a railroad in Panama.
They do.
Kansas City Southern. And when they rebuilt it and started modern passenger service,
They painted the paint. They took some F-40s down there.
right?
After they
former Amtrak F-40s.
Yeah. And they actually regauged it
Mm-hmm.
to standard gauge because it was 5 foot.
Imperial gauge? Russian imperial gauge?
Yes. But they weren't the only ones that had it. Brazil had 5-foot gauge. In fact, the Little Joes, the electrics that were built in the 40s by General Electric,
Yeah.
they were originally
5 foot.
5 foot for service in Russia, and some got sold to Brazil, and the rest stayed up here.
Brazil, South Shore got 2,
3.
3, and the rest went to
But
Milwaukee.
do not call them Little Joes on the South Shore. Do not.
No,
They're the 800s.
they the 800s. Just like they weren't big boys on the UP. They were the 4000s.
Well, you were talking about Facebook, and somewhere on my Facebook page is a picture of me up a cab of the Little Joe, or the 800 at IRM, and I can tell you that it's a 32-point controller. Instead of your normal 8 notches, there's 32 points.
Go up into the cab of the GG1.
Been there too, except when I was there, it was filled with raccoon droppings.
The throttle and a GG1 is 48 notches,
Mm-hmm.
the same as the steam locomotives. Well, the majority of them are built at Altoona. Westinghouse built some of them. Well, actually Baldwin did. And then GE built some.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of the 138 built
Was out at Altoona.
out of Altoona.
It's the way I remember the story being told up at IRM. The GG1's got 2 settings, off and brownout. As soon as they try to power it up, they take the whole grid down.
Well, yeah.
Because they didn't change the circuits like they did in the 800s. The 800s can run on the 600 volts.
Yeah, but I'll say this. Back in 93, we had a nice little convention, and IRM brought every piece of equipment that could move out for the NRHS convention. That day, I happened to be up in the Little Joe, and with all the trolleys on the line and trolleys on the main line, and I was up in the Little Joe, and we had to move it forward about 5 feet. And I was told, John, come on, move it up. Okay. Release the brakes, pull on the throttle, pull it. Oh, I'm not even moving. John, it's a 32-point controller. You got to pull it out. So I pull it out to 8. It moved 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, and then the power turned off. And everybody sat for 5 minutes while somebody went and reset the breaker. Because
Too much power.
it likes electricity.
More power.
Power supervisors at Metro would have loved that.
Mm-hmm. But they're good engines.
Oh, yeah.
And the same with the G's. But the thing was, you also need to have fluid in the cooler.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Now, and once that thing gets flushed out, you could probably run it. But I'd like to get one rebuilt where you can run it.
GG1. Unfortunately, all the electrical gear that required the oil-cooled transformers with the PCBs in it, all that got removed. The one at IRM is a shell on the inside.
Oh, it doesn't have the cool.
No.
Now the one that was saved and went to the B&O Museum, and then they took it out and hid it out on a sidetrack because it's not theirs.
It's not B&O.
And it came from New Jersey Transit, number 4876. The one that crashed, it was the one that crashed into D.C. and decided to crash into the floor, into the post office.
They
The
still
mailroom.
they still suspect that was tampered with because the airline was cut behind the second car, and when the engineer went to drop the air to slow down, and he's going downhill into the station, and he
was going uphill first, so he did slow down.
right.
And he heard a little bit. And going down, though.
He went down into the station, through the wall, and into the basement. And as I remember, what was it, the Democratic National Convention or the Republican
Yeah,
National?
one of the conventions
No,
was in town.
no, it wasn't a convention. It was the inauguration.
Ah.
It was the inauguration.
They took it, they cut it up into hunks, they dropped it through the floor, and they
And
built the floor over it.
And they did this in, we're talking less than 24 hours after it happened.
They didn't have to call Holcher.
No, this was all in-house.
Oh, that's right. They had enough people working for the railroad at the time. And the station.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it was amazing, and they put a newsstand right in the middle of the floor. And people, where was the wreck?
Yeah, none the wiser.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
And then 2 weeks later, then they hauled it out.
Cut it up, hauled it out in pieces, took it to Altoona, as I
No.
remember.
No. Took it right up the road to Wilmington. That's where the shop was for the GG1s.
And welded it back together.
And it still exists today. Huh?
Yes, it
Yes,
does.
it does.
Well, it looks like some of the pieces out at IRM.
Franken engine?
I mean, it needs a lot of work. Well, that's enough reminiscing and having fun. Again, please, after you listen to the program, if you have any suggestions, please send it in through our Facebook page. Eventually,
You'll get a response.
yes. And we'll be happy to answer any questions or suggestions that you might have. So we can happily say, for Airjet, happy rails to you. As our express pulls into the station, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be listened to on the web at www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and all our past episodes, and also sample some of the other fine programs that are being offered. I am your announcer, Brian Ballou. Till next month when we journey to Chicago Junction.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, January the 9th, the year 2019. Chicago Junction was produced and directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Shikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, January the 9th, the year 2019. Friends, until the next time we meet, please be safe and thanks for listening.